Hello everybody, welcome to the Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today I'm talking about the new album from Vale-Smith, Origami. What the fuck? Alright then, Vale-Smith, in case you didn't already know, is a project helmed by fellow music reviewer Buffalo Staple. A seriously underrated channel. Go check his stuff out. Now, this project here is his sophomore album. His debut album, All for a Cascade, came out last year, and I covered it. I did a video on it. I'll link it in the description. It was kind of this interesting blend of down-tempo and trap music. Pretty chill stuff with a couple of melodic moments here and there that stuck with me a little. But I admittedly otherwise didn't find it to be anything all that special. Felt more like pleasant background music that didn't totally play to my specific taste in downtempo or popped out to me in any significant way. Not bad, just kinda average. I was interested in hearing how he'd follow it up though. He has released 2 other EPs since that album. One called Eagle 70/Thank You, and another called Exordium Delicacy Vestibule Farce. That is a mouthful, but admittedly I have not listened to either. May check those out another time, I don't know. I was kind of wary going into Origami though, especially given it's tagged on Bandcamp as future bass, trap, and wonky, 3 genres that tend not to be my thing. Yes, I'm aware of the irony that the guy behind a channel called The Wonky Angle isn't a big fan of wonky music, but I did not know this genre was a thing back when I came up with the name. Whatever. But I gave Origami a good couple of listens, and right off the bat, I thought it was a major improvement from his debut. I actually had a lot of fun listening to this thing. It's really good. And you know what's interesting is that 2 of my biggest critiques, if you want to call it that, which I mentioned in my All for a Cascade video, still apply here. They just became less of gripe. Like, one complaint I had before is that a lot of the melodies before seemed concerned with setting a mood and weren't the kind of thing that would stick in my head. If anything, Origami is actually less catchy than his debut, though that also feels specifically by design. It's a lot more abstract and strange. Tracks change up a lot in their running time. It's even pretty hard to tell tracks apart from each other, with a couple of exceptions. The majority of this album feels like it's coming together as one singular piece, rather than a series of stylistically similar motifs. But if melodies are going to set a mood, that won't actually be a complaint if that mood is executed well, and here I can say he actually did succeed in getting me emotionally invested. A lot of these melodic moments all over this thing just popped out to me so much more. Another issue that I had with the debut is that the percussion mostly consisted of, like, generic trap beats. That's admittedly also true of Origami as well. Most of the percussion on this thing falls under the generic patterns you'd hear in your everyday trap productions. But again, I found it less bothersome here. I suppose this might also be thanks to the fact that we recently came off of that last Flume project, which is kind of in the same stylistic ballpark as this, I guess. And I'll say that if this album had taken the same approach as that one and just gone all completely random with the percussion, and that'd probably be a more difficult listen for me. The trap beats may not necessarily be that imaginative, but they do at least form a groove. Just having a beat to tap my foot to or bob my head along with makes a bigger difference than one would expect. So okay, I may not think that Origami is really reinventing the wheel, nor is Vale-Smith toying with a lot of sounds that I haven't already heard him work with, but I can pretty easily point to one department where he really stepped up his game, and that's just the production and sound design. The production on his debut was fine, not the worst I'd ever heard, but you could kind of tell it was coming from some bedroom producer. Origami sounds a lot more professional. The sound design is a lot more layered, it feels like a lot more things are going on in any given track, and perhaps more importantly, it feels like all of these elements are given a lot more space to breathe. It makes the entire thing so much more rewarding to listen to. The percussion tracks may not be anything special, but it's pretty clear they're not the focus. Everything on top is where all the detail and texture is, and there's a lot more to pay attention to. There's stranger and more experimental moments, with semi-abrasive vocal samples and other odd noises going up against pianos and bells and strings for more melodic elements. Nearly every track on here has that same kind of blend of sounds. And all of it works together surprisingly pretty damn well. combining the experimentalism with a sense of chill accessibility in a really effective way. In terms of individual tracks, I feel like I have a lot less to say than I did on the debut, not only because there's fewer tracks, but because they all blend together so well, and I'd probably have a lot of the exact same things to say on most of these, but may as well discuss a couple of them. I suppose the title track is a solid opener, lets you know what you're getting into, and Snow Globe has some pretty cool new agey guitar textures and parts, but I think the first track on here that really stuck out to me as a highlight was North Orbit. Its yelling vocal samples going, "Gonja, be a glider!" Probably the most memorable texture on the whole album. It's also stuttered and chopped up, going against its loud and abrasive and strange beats, creating this kind of dark and slightly unnerving vibe that's pretty fun and engaging. The louder and more energetic parts of this track are probably the best parts of it, even if there are side tracks into MIDI-sounding guitars and light pianos later on. But the moment at which I knew I was really going to like this thing was the track Typhoon. That one takes a bit to get going with all its incomprehensible echoing vocal samples in the intro, but once the melodic parts come in, it feels like the track just opens up for me. With all its emotive pianos and strings and quirky melodic synths, it was the first moment on this album that I was just like, ooh, that's really nice. Similar feelings on the melodic parts of tracks like Virtuoso, with its cold but inviting melodic progressions in the background going up against energetic beats and reverb samples of someone going bleh, alongside other various side tracks like one a little before the 2-minute mark where you got all these little quick bell sounds over a pad of strings, also creating one of the more evocative moments on this thing. And also the track Hawk always stuck out to me with its layers upon layers of strange but evocative bell sounds. Both of those tracks were major highlights for me. Interestingly enough though, the 2 intermission tracks on this album are also 2 of my favorite moments from this thing. Intermission 1 is among the best melodic moments on this album, with all its deep piano sounds and strings that feel directly linked to the melodies on Typhoon. One of the most emotionally resonant moments on here. And Intermission 2 is on the opposite extreme, one of the harshest and most experimental moments on this thing, with lots of screeching synths that sound like metal scraping, EQ'd and covered in reverb, with other random melodic elements to just cascade all over the place. This really instrumentally sticks out and transitions perfectly into Hawk as well. As for other standout moments, I guess Godzilla had some kind of 80s Casio keyboard bell synths near the beginning that gave me some kind of vaporwave-y vibes that I guess were pretty cool. Shuriken has a really dramatic opening couple of seconds that I wish had lasted longer. And the closer, Graceful Charity, was neat, finishing out with the longest track, but maybe not what I'd have picked for the closer. I mean, it has a lot going on, has an interesting and engaging structure, for sure. I mean, it's basically 3 parts in one. But it didn't really have the emotional pathos I'd want out of an album ending. It just kind of tapers out uneventfully. Maybe this track would have been better suited to being placed earlier on, I don't know. Not that I'm sure what else I would have picked to finish the album. Possibly Shuriken if that one ended less abruptly, but I don't know, I'm just being nitpicky at this point. That's a good enough ending. And yeah, that's about all I got as far as individual tracks go. As I said before, this is an album that feels like it's all one big holistic experience. Even if tracks don't offer much for me to say, it's more because it all blends together and a lot of these tracks show a lot of the same ideas. But you know, in the best way, like, makes this thing feel a lot more cohesive. I never feel compelled to skip any tracks. I think it's better suited to just letting the album flow the way it does without really paying attention to what tracks come when. They all link together almost totally seamlessly. And yeah, I think that's about everything I have to say on the topic of Origami. Overall, I thought this project was really solid. Well, I'm still not sure if I consider it great. It's really dang good. I'm definitely keeping it on my iPod. I can see myself coming back to it in the future. This thing is definitely worth checking out. I think Vale-Smith has really come a long way as a producer in less than a year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he puts out next. I'm overall feeling a 7.7 out of 10 on this thing. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. Shout out to my Patreon supporters, they're awesome people. You want to add yourself to that list or make me a review, something linked to my Patreon is in the description. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.